On this episode of IT Unplugged, we look at why your current IT provider might kind of suck. Whether it's new venture capitalist money coming in, overpriced hardware, or overcomplicated contracts, we simplify everything for you.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to talk about why managed service provider IT service kind of sucks lately, and kind of dig into maybe a little bit of the whys. It can be like a super disheartening topic sometimes, especially since we're going into a lot of places and talking to businesses, and they're telling us, hey, we're like super not happy with the current provider that we had. So like what's broken in this IT space when it comes to external IT?
We seem to see a lot of the same things. It's kind of like a broken record sometimes, right? And there's a couple of avenues. Maybe somebody's not happy with the service they're receiving. Maybe somebody's either not understanding what they're being billed for, whether or not they're happy with the invoice. Like, hey, we don't really have an issue with the price we're paying, but we don't really know what we're being billed for. Mm-hmm. It's just managed services, and then it's this much per month. Sounds good, but our service sucks or whatever, right? So that's playing off the first one. Or maybe the third is they feel like they're being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So again, maybe the price is right, but they've got to buy stuff all the time, or the price isn't right and they're just getting taken advantage of.
Yeah, it's like that weird thing where you can tell trust is broken, and that's the hardest thing. And you're like, oh, okay. There's like no going back at this point. There's been something that's happened. Sometimes we figure out what it is, sometimes we don't, and it could be one or all of those things. And it feels like that trust is like a really big aspect. And once it's done, it's like, okay, I'm going somewhere else because you're managing all the things that are like important to me in a business.
Keeping the business running. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all those things. One of the things that I feel like we keep on seeing as we sit down with, tens, 20s, hundreds of customers over the last year is venture capital money kind of coming into this space. And, places are just getting eaten up by larger IT companies. And their identity was one thing. And then when venture capital money comes in, it kind of changes and we hear different stories. So what are you seeing on that front?
Clients becoming a number.
Yeah.
Right. So, they used to call in and they get their person. They're no longer getting their person. You get a call flow, or you have to submit a ticket, and then eventually someone calls you back, and then that's just an operator, and then they, dispatch you to help desk, and then from help desk you get to level 2, and then eventually you get to the on-site person, and that whole process makes people upset. Most of the time, that's why they're looking for a different type of service. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's perfect for somewhere, but typically who we work with, that's not what they want. They want, a person that knows. They want a guy. I got a guy for that, right? That's what they want. That also, there's a lot of profit-oriented services or profit-oriented decisions that the VC, the venture capitalists, are bringing to the table. So maybe this is a really good security offering and it makes a lot of sense, but so is this one, but maybe it's priced a little better and it's a little, lacking a little bit of feature set. So that's what we're going to use because we're going to make a little bit more money on that, but maybe it's not in the best interest of the client.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's going from kind of that organism of like, hey, we're here to help and we'll work with you around these things, to like full-blown organization, and we are going to make decisions based on a P&L versus what's right for our customer. And we've seen that a lot of the times, even with the kind of like all-inclusive pricing model and different things. And it's like, okay, somebody's going to call us. They need our help. It doesn't matter what level it is. But how much can we push off to level 1 techs? Like, we're comfortable in the past.
Forcing it through level 1 before getting it to the right solution.
Yeah.
So, somebody calls in with a server issue. Okay, we should probably just get it to Brandon because, Brandon is level 1. Well, Brandon has no idea what's going on. So he's going to spend an hour trying to kind of pedal the gears and figure out what's happening here. And then after an hour, we don't really know. So we're going to pass it off to, Mike, mm-hmm. who's our server guy. wouldn't that make more sense to just have Mike look at it right away?
Yeah.
But not always, right?
Yep.
But
Because
Brandon's free. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're going to send it first.
Yeah. And what can we all either, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like creating friction to a point where people don't want to utilize the service as much. And we've seen that in the past where we all know.
It's the how many times do you call question.
Yeah.
Like, well, as little as we can. You know, and you're like, oh, you guys don't have any issues? No, we have issues. We're just like really good at looking into it ourselves before we have to call.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like the gym, like canceling a gym membership. Okay. Everybody has the capability to like hit the cancel button on the thing. But
you gotta show up in person.
Show up in
bring your
person.
Social Security. Bring your real ID. I don't even have a real ID. What do I do?
And then on top of that, it's like, okay, now we need to fill out this form. And then we need you to actually mail it to the HQ. And then we're going to process it. But there's a 30-day processing fee and all this other stuff. And you're like, 1
day passed. Now you have 120 before you can cancel.
and now you're sitting there going, is this even worth it? Like, I guess I'd go back and stuff. And then it's 6 months later and you're still sitting in that environment paying for a bill because you're like, wow, that was too much friction and I didn't want to do it. Now I lost out on money and now I'm unhappy and now I have a bad taste in my mouth for all gyms.
Yep.
It's like the same thing for IT companies recently. I feel like with that venture capital money kind of coming in and reporting to somebody in Chicago or California that's just looking at your account and going, this is how much we've made.
Sometimes there's almost been little like nuances with that. Maybe like beginning of the year we ran into one where it was like the local branch of the US based conglomerate is kind of beefing with themselves. Like, well, corporate wants us to do this, so we totally understand why the client X is leaving us because this corporate thing.
Yeah.
You're like, but that's you.
Yeah. You have the same name.
What do you mean? That doesn't make sense.
I feel like we have the really large ones that obviously are spending the most money on marketing and getting in front of a lot of customers. You get those that kind of first listing or second listing on Google. They're going to call. They're like, I don't really know that much about IT. These guys are really big, so I better trust them. And then they find out that it's super impersonal and they're more concerned about the P&L.
For sure, lose that personal touch.
Oh, yeah. And then you have the flip side. So let's talk about the other flip side on why your IT might suck right now is because you're with a place that has one or two people and they're like, I really like IT. I know I've done this before at another place and now I'm going to run my own IT on my own, but they don't really have a whole lot of like organizational structure and they don't really feel comfortable maybe hiring a second or a third person. But they knew a couple
maybe
people.
The workload's not there. Where, you have you're gonna have somebody sitting around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now though, maybe they've gotten like 20 customers and they're just drowning. Like, have you seen that with any companies that we've kind of talked to so far?
Yeah. Summertime, we onboarded somebody that had a similar situation where they used to always have their guy. They had their Brandon, and it was great, and no issues. They felt like pricing was accurate, and everything was just kind of humming along. But they can no longer talk to their Brandon, unless it's a dire need. They're talking to Brandon too, and that just didn't really rub them the right way, and they wanted to stick with their person, and that's also kind of a difficult thing because maybe they don't really have a quarrel with the company as a whole, but enough to spur change. Yeah. So then we're kind of starting from that point where it's like, hey, you trust these people and you like their service and you're kind of fine with their pricing, so you're making somewhat of a lateral change, but you want to maintain that personal touch, and you have your single point of contact, and we can do that, but it's just kind of a weird spot to be, right? Where you're like, oh, we really liked Brandon, but we can't get a hold of him, so we're gonna have to switch to somebody else. So now it's Mike, and everyone's like, oh man, we really like Brandon though, right? Like, that's kind of a tough like breakup. Yeah,
because it's not like an angry thing sometimes when you get with the larger companies that haven't been, you just like have gotten poor service, or like you're getting the kind of runaround and stuff like that. You're like, gosh, these guys are really like irking me the wrong way. It's like a whole lot of empathy a lot of the times when it's a smaller person, because they're just like, you're like, man, they got busy, and unfortunately, we're just not a
especially if
priority.
they've grown with the company, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Brandon, I'm just really picking on you.
Yeah, that's okay.
Brandon was here since we had 3 employees. He's been with us for like 8 years, but we've just kind of outgrown him now. Like, that's kind of an awkward thing too. Hey,
Yeah.
we're bigger than what you can support. Although we really like your support, but like, sorry, you can't. You're not really built for us anymore. That's a tough spot. So I understand that.
I think with scale too, that becomes really tough, and like it's not easy to be a 1 or 2 person MSP, and then like make the jump into the 3, 4, 5. Like there's kind of a cutoff in revenue and employees where it's like a crazy stat where so many of these companies won't get to that point because it just takes a different skill set to kind of get there.
Mm-hmm.
But as a company grows and they're still with this company that maybe they like drove by and they had a shop on Main Street or something like that, like, and then you need a server, or now you've grown and you need 10 computers. Like what we're finding a lot of the times is that small place just has no buying power or anything else. Yep. Not even that M2 is like so huge.
Maybe you can make it happen. It's just you're not getting the deals that are going to win you deals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like you kind of have to look out for yourself just a tad bit when you're like, wow, I mean, we've looked at server builds for smaller places and they're like $10,000 more than what they need to because they just are essentially buying it like a regular consumer would. Yep. And it's just kind of like disheartening because like, oh man, like this is not fair for the company that they're servicing.
Or the bucket style, right? Hey, you're a large, you fit into large customer category. Okay, large customers purchase this for their server. Mm-hmm. When realistically this place might, they might be fine with the CPU that's in this large server build, but not the amount of storage. Like they need less storage, so they're overbuying, or it's not a right fit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of have the different sizes, right? Maybe 2. I feel like we're in the Goldilocks thing, right? Where it's like too big, just care about the P&L, and you become a number. And then too small, maybe you don't have the bandwidth to fully be supported. You're paying too much for certain things. And then you kind of got the Goldilocks in the middle. I feel like M2 technology kind of fits into that. So that's where I think we like to kind of play. But even with the size difference, we onboard a lot of clients. You do specifically. What, like getting real into the details, what are some of the things that you see that kind of like lean into this? Like, hey, my IT just doesn't feel like they're doing what they're supposed to, or my IT has kind of sucked for a while. Like when you get into the details, what are some of the things that you're seeing that's kind of like alarming and makes you go like,
I've got thoughts on this.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't think we've necessarily like actually discuss this. This is interesting. Macro level and micro level, both personal opinion and then fact. So personal opinion not being my personal opinion, but like the client or the recent client. Macro, more so like, hey, this place is really insecure. Like, you guys are running home consumer stuff, like that'd be scary, right? But like something like that, or the opposite end where it's you're running something but it's just very old. Like your firewall's from 2006. It's causing you slowdowns, causing you issues, something like that, or nothing is up to date. Like server updates haven't been done, computer updates haven't been done, just silly little goofy things like that. That would be more so like macro and fact. And then personal opinion, macro level for the client, like these guys, we don't know what they're doing. They show up and they're here and they do some work, but then we get a bill for 8 hours and like we think they were here, but honestly we didn't see them for 6 of those hours, and then they took that lunch and then they had 3 guys here, and then we got billed for 3 guys, but then we also got a bill to call them to let them know we needed to have them come on site for 15 minutes, but like that was just a phone call. So like what's going on there? So just trust, like just overall trust. More so micro then is like really little nitpicky things, just places being a mess. It's like if you walk in somewhere and you're like, this is our closet, like it's crazy, it looks like a bird's nest, you're like, okay, if it's working, no big deal. But a lot of times that's an annoyance for somebody, and like you pick up on that real quick, like, guys, we'll show you the rack, it sucks, we've told them 15 times we want this cleaned up. So micro, because you're still functioning, you're still doing your thing, it's not necessarily insecure, but like if that's a concern to them, then we'll make it a priority to make that happen. And that's such a quick thing that shows change. Like it's an instant satisfaction thing to them where it's like, oh my gosh, Brandon put in the time and cleaned up these cables. Like, I mean, it was like an hour at times, so no big deal, but they love that, this is great. Like we were hounding them for 3 years and they never did it. It's like, it's not fun stuff, but you just, it's easy enough. And then same with that kind of fits into the updates also. Yeah. Sometimes maybe something's not super out of date, but it's just then showing like, hey guys, this vSphere has been online for 700 days. Like maybe let's reboot that really easy. It's going to take 30 minutes after hours here, but they'd never see that. So you kind of bring it to light. So you feel like you're a tattletale for a minute there, but that's like that onboarding report card.
Yeah. I think so every single person that we work with has a different level of understanding of IT, right? And you don't see that a lot of times when you walk into a place and they have an IT resource already. You know what I mean? Like like an IT director or something like that. Often. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about places that like are just using an outside MSP. But like the customers that we talk to have different levels of understanding. So I feel like that's so important though to like point to them like this has not been rebooted in 2 years, or the physical change of a network closet
and the importance of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that education. And I think it also kind of like gives them validation when it comes to making that change, where they're like, you know what, something felt kind of off, things were going slow, I felt like I wasn't getting what I was paying for. And then when you give that report card after, you're like, okay, I was right. You know what I mean? Like there's validation in me wanting to look somewhere else for that. So
well, and just the way that we invoice, or really like anywhere should invoice, is all your notes, right? So we did this for this amount of time on this day, on site, remote, whatever. The onboarding report card then kind of also is verification of that. Like you're already doing it for your notes, so it's really just cleaning it up and presenting it and calling attention to it. Where it's hey, in the first 5 hours of us working with you, this is what we ran into. And then either this is what solved it, or this is what we recommend that we're going to be doing to solve it, unless there's like something to purchase or buy or whatever, then get approval. But most oftentimes it's not that. It's normally clean up stuff.
Sure. So I haven't heard you talk about data backup a whole lot, and sometimes we go through discovery meetings and we're looking at people's stuff and they're like, yeah, that's our data backup, but we don't know if it's backing up at all. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
The question of, we've never had to use it. So like, how do we know it's working well?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, how often are we seeing things that people are paying for, like data backup, that's not actually being utilized?
That's a tough question. A lot of times there's features that are listed on a managed plan that somebody doesn't necessarily know that they have. So that's similar to backup, but like 365 backup or something like that, or workstation specific backup, where they're in bucket A, and bucket A includes workstation backup for all people, 365 backup, like enhanced mail filtering, and disaster recovery plan. But no one has any clue what it is, and it's just part of a price. There's a price per head, and it's $90 per head, and it includes all this. You're like, okay, that's a lot of things, cool. But if you don't know that you have it, and you don't know what it does, and you don't know how it's working, or if you have it, or if it is working, we can just list stuff too.
Right.
It's like, we're going to include a personal massage, with every workstation. Like, okay, well.
Well, I kind of want to, and I feel like all of it kind of comes back to that trust, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. And we were in a place recently, and they were buying all their own computers, right, and all their own monitors and everything, and it was a place that should not have been doing that, but they just lost the trust of their IT. They did not trust their IT provider, and for good reason. Like they were giving like crazy markups on all these items, or that's what they were being given. And it's like, well, you're going to buy stuff through us, so we're going to charge you an 80% markup or 100% markup on stuff. And they just said enough and completely stopped doing that. I mean, if you're at a point like that as a business, that is a reevaluation point, right? Because you've broken that trust, and that shouldn't be how your relationship with IT is, because you're paying for them to take care of that stuff. And now, in this case, like, a medical professional is doing all these things that they definitely shouldn't be on a day-to-day basis.
And just because it's easier and they'd rather research, going to Best Buy or Costco to get a desktop, because then at least if I pay this much for this spec, I know that that's what's in it and I trust that it's fine, as opposed to there's going to be an $800 tax on top just because I asked company X, what should I get? Oh, I think we should get this for you, right? Like, that's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that trust being built up over time. The last thing I want to kind of talk about here with why your IT might suck, why you might feel like it sucks. And I know we have a little bit different pricing model than some other places. And talking with a lot of other MSP owners, it's like, I'll be real transparent. It's like, this is how you make a lot of money. That's usually the reason behind the model that I'm going to talk
business,
about.
Baby.
I know, and everybody needs to make money, but it's the unlimited support model. And there's this thing that goes like, okay, unlimited support actually gives the business this feeling like, I'm going to get as much support as I possibly need. I don't have to worry about getting billed when I pick up the phone or anything like that. And then usually that charge, it could be $110 a user all the way, prices naturally is like $250, $300 a user. And then you pay this big reoccurring bill, and everything's included. And it sounds so great on paper until... For some, yes.
Yeah.
And for some, it is the right model. And for some businesses, you can do it, and it might be a win-win. What we keep finding, though, is this model is being rolled out, and then companies are getting taken advantage of because of what's in scope and what's out of scope.
Yeah.
What is that kind of, like, how have you seen that being a factor?
I'd love to know what the actual definition from a provider is to what scope means, right? Because like scope is pretty cut and dry, at least the way that we define like what's in scope and what's out of scope. But sometimes it's not so cut and dry. Good examples is if somebody's like, hey, we're going to come on site and look at a conference room. Well, conference rooms, although it's a computer and it's a monitor and there's a audio conferencing setup with a phone and whatever, right? Like cables in the table. Sounds a lot like somebody's desk, but it's a conference room, so that's actually out of scope.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, like sounds good. Can you guys help us with it? Yep. That's just a different fee. There's a flat rate and then there's our normal hourly. And then because that's all we're coming there for, there's a travel charge. So, your one visit for a conference room is $2,000 or whatever. Right. And you're like, well, we need a conference room. It is what it is. But then doing that same work, if it wasn't a conference room, it was at Brandon's desk, that's in scope, so that's covered, right? Like that kind of goofy line is strange. So I'd love a proper definition from somebody.
I think it's different everywhere too, and then it's hard to
maybe time to time.
Yeah, exactly.
From what we've heard.
Yeah, from what we've heard, and then on top of that, it's that transparency and the trust. Because as soon as you're like, oh, well, networking's not included, that's out of scope. And you're like, well, they had to reset an access point. But I called them on the phone for this, and it was basic troubleshooting to find out it was the access point.
Poke a button.
Yes. And that was the hour-long call. But we're going to not put that in the included one because it was networking stuff. So now it's another hour-and-a-half charge on top of my monthly. It's one of those things where you're losing trust and you're losing transparency. And we're finding a lot of companies are actually losing out in the long run on this model. Sometimes
it's been unknown until they receive the invoice too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like when you're on the phone with somebody doing something out of scope, you, the client, are aware that it is in fact out of scope.
Yeah.
They're just aware that they're troubleshooting. We're looking at access points today, I guess. And then when you get the invoice, you're like, wait. That 3/4 of an hour was actually out of scope, so I'm getting billed separately. Like, nobody told me.
Yeah. It kind of upsets me. I'm not gonna lie, because you hear these places and then we'll come in and like give a different option, and their skepticism is so high. They're like, wait, so we're gonna get these hours and we can use them for what? We're like, well, if you want to use it for a password reset, you can. And, it might be like 10 minutes here or something like that. But if you want to use it for building a server, it's the same price. You're like, now what's the catch? And as a new IT provider, like as M2 Technology, we're constantly trying to rebuild that trust and prove to them, like, no, we're different. You don't have to worry about this. But they have kind of that, like, bad relationship in the back of their head, and they lack trust. So it's a hard thing to crawl out of, but definitely a possibility. We've done it before, and it's just a little bit more of a longer
Trust
journey.
is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate the insight, Mike, as we continue to dig into more and more companies and find out kind of what their IT service looks like, and then how we can kind of continue to improve that. So if you are, maybe going, man, my outside IT provider kind of sucks. They're doing a lot of the things that we just talked about. Reach out to M2 Technology. We can let you know how we're different. But with that, that's the end of our episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you check us out on the other episodes on our website, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next time.